So this session that we're going to be doing is our part two of final expense best practices. This is a continuation of what we've been talking about, and the goal of today's webinar is to give you those little extra nuggets to help you be more effective out in the field, maybe be better at overcoming objections and just being more organized with your business. Let me check to see if Richard has joined us, and he is on. Let me go ahead and unmute him. Let's see, Richard, you are muted, sir.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hey, buddy, how you doing?
Pretty good, guys. Sorry, I'm on a little late. Had some things I need to take care of. But
No
I'm on.
worries, man. Awesome. Are you available to jump right in, or do you need some time?
Yeah, no, I'm ready.
All right, awesome. All right. Well, guys, our special guest speaker, Richard Luna, who's been with us for a little bit over 3 years now, right, Richard?
It'll be going on 3 years actually in August.
Okay, all right. It'll be 3 years in August. Richard started out with us as a part-time agent, and just a tremendous success story. And has been the #1 agent in the country on many occasions, and just a great guy, a good friend, and an amazing producer as well. So looking forward to picking up all the nuggets and tidbits from Richard. Jimmy, with this, let me go ahead and turn it over to you. This is your slide. Let's talk about how enthusiasm sells.
Awesome. Well, good morning, people. So, we talked about best practices, and the number one thing that I can start with is enthusiasm. The thing you can do the best to increase your sales is to be enthusiastic. I've seen many times over individuals that are experts in their field, but they struggle to make a living. I've also seen someone who knows very little about their field because they're new, but they're excited and they have enthusiasm and they outperform those that are experts in their field. And many times they become superstars. It's because enthusiasm sells. And if you want to be enthusiastic, you got to act enthusiastic. So you just have to, remind yourself to have a huge smile and to be encouraging and be enthusiastic, and then you will become enthusiastic. So that's my first best practice. Joe, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Well, I do. It's kind of funny. The way the brain works is that you cannot act one way but feel another. Your brain will not let you. So what Jimmy, it kind of sounds kind of corny, but it's true. So you put a smile on your face, and if you act enthusiastic, you're almost tricking yourself into becoming enthusiastic. It's hard it's hard to have a smile on your face and have positive, encouraging words coming out of your mouth, but then have negative thoughts at the same time. Your brain won't let you do it. So if you want to become enthusiastic, like Jimmy says, all you have to do is if you act enthusiastic. It's kind of like the terminology fake it till you make it, which I'm not a big fan of that phrase, but uh, enthusiastic is contagious, and you can catch yourself. You can turn yourself enthusiastic simply just by acting it out. It's pretty amazing how it works. I'm thinking about it, and I'm feeling just seeing the word enthusiasm is making me enthusiastic, Jimmy. So probably hear it in my voice. I feel more enthusiastic right now just talking about it. So it works. Next is STP. Talked about this last week, man. See the people, see the people, see the people. I promise you, I don't care how good the leads are, how good the system is. If you don't go see the people, it don't work. Plain and simple. You're not going to make money. You're not going to be successful if you don't go see the people. Isn't that right, Jimmy?
That's right. You know, Joe, you can have the best products, you can have the best insurance carriers, you can have the best rates, you can have the best presentation, you could be the best at overcoming objections, you could be the most prepared, the most organized person. But if you're not seeing the people, my friend, you're going to be out of business really quick. And so you have to get out there and see the people. And you know what? The key to being successful in this industry is seeing the people. Most people think it's learning the presentation. That's not the key. Most people get hung up on getting organized and having everything perfect, having all the apps in order. Most people get hung up with trying to learn the presentation. They put 90% of their time in the presentation and they're putting 10% of their time in prospecting. The key to this business is prospecting. You got to get out there and see the people. So how do you find the people to talk to is probably the answer to that question. You know, how do you get in front of people? So I don't know if we have a slide for it, Joe, or do you just want me to continue on?
Um, no, I don't have a slide
Okay. I
for
didn't
that.
think
What?
But so where do you find these people? How do you see the people? So let's start with the warm market. Warm market is going to be your friends, your neighbors, your relatives, the people that you already know. That's your warm market. You can start there. Here's what I can tell you about warm market. You will typically get 4 to 5 cells with your warm market and then it's over. Okay. If you're really, really aggressive, maybe double that and then it's over. Okay. So what are you going to do after your friends and your family, right? Well, then you could cold call. You could, buy raw data and start making phone calls. You can get the phone book and start making phone calls. You can go pick a neighborhood out and you can start door knocking. And you know what? You can have success that way. That's all in the numbers, but let's be realistic. Most people are not going to do that. Most people don't have what it takes to cold call, because to cold call means that you have to be able to be abused with rejection, and most people can't handle that. Okay, so I don't know if you want to comment on that before I move on to the next one.
No, let's just see if Richard has anything to add. Richard?
Hey guys, the only thing I really could add is really that's the important thing that you said, Jimmy, is that rejection is huge. So I think really what I want to say is this: start getting used to rejection in this industry and don't take it personally.
Good,
Very good.
good point. The next way you can find people is going to be with networking. Oh, let's back up, Joe. I'm not ready to move on to the next topic, but I want to talk about how to find the people. So
Okay.
you can network, right? So with networking, you can go to, like, for example, I tried this a few years ago. I joined the 3 different chambers of commerce: San Antonio Chamber of Commerce, the West Side Chamber of Commerce, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. I joined meetup groups. There's meetup groups all over the country. I was getting all these different clubs: photography clubs and this club and that club, gardening club, all these clubs, just so that I can go out and mingle and network and meet people. And you can, that's just a little bit better than cold calling, but it takes a lot of work, and you're not going to, be honest with you, you're not going to make very many sales. You're not going to have enough sales to sustain your business, to make money, to pay your bills. I'm just telling you, I've been there and done that. Okay. The next type of marketing is going to be social media. Okay. And social media is hard work. This is what I have to tell you about social media. Social media, in my eyes, equals no sales. Okay. The time and effort that it takes to cultivate that market, that could be better spent in another area and you can make immediate sales and be a lot more profitable. I'm not saying that you don't want to do it at all. I'm just saying you don't want to put all your eggs in that basket because you're not going to make any sales anytime soon. Okay, not unless you're advertising. I'm not talking about advertising in social media. I'm talking about like you're trying to cultivate your warm market, your network of friends. You know, I see so many business people think that LinkedIn is the key to their success, and it's almost like a full-time job trying to monitor that. And I've been down that road, and like the sales are very few and far between. So just thought I'd throw that out. The next one is going to be referrals. So when it comes to referrals, those are like the best lead source, right? Because somebody that they know recommended you. So you've already overcome, I guess you can say, the credibility part of meeting somebody. Somebody's already said, hey, this guy did a really great job. You're gonna like him. He's got really good products. He's got good rates. You need to go see Joe. You need to go see Richard. You need to go see Jimmy. Those are lovely, and so you can work regardless of it's your warm market, cold market networking, you know, whoever you meet, your existing clientels, you want more of those, right? The problem with referrals is that you don't control it, they do, right? So the next type of marketing would be events, right? You can hold events, you can advertise, you can market, and you can try to stimulate the interest in life insurance and financial services by holding different events. And you know, those are good too. But I can tell you this, that you know, typically it's going to be hard without spending a lot of advertising dollars to have a consistent event that's going to constantly put money in your pocket. So comes to my last source of seeing the people. Here at Senior Solutions, we have a lead platform. And this is the beauty of having leads, is that you're not having to count on all of these intangible ways of meeting people. See, because when you go to a networking event or you work your warm market, you cannot consistently say that you're going to sit in front of so many people each week, make so many presentations. It's not tangible, right? It's kind of like kind of throwing darts in the dark. Sometimes you might hit it, but most of the time you're not, right? But when you buy leads, these leads are going to, you know, consistently put you in front of people. So as an example, well, let's talk about our direct mail leads. Our direct mail leads, our A leads, we drop mail to people in your county, whatever county you choose to work in. I work in Bexar County, so we drop leads in Bexar County. Those people, they open the envelope, they read the information that talks about life insurance. If they're interested, they're going to fill out that card. They're going to stick it back in an envelope, seal the envelope, and put it in the mailbox. So they had to do a little bit of work. When that lead is returned to us, we're scanning it and emailing it to you, the agent, within days, right? So normally, from the time that person put that in the mailbox to the time you get it is normally 3 to 4 days. So that means when you pick up the phone or you go to that person's house with the lead in hand, they just requested that information. And our system, we build our system, if you're full-time, on 20 leads a week. That means that every week you have 20 new people to talk to. And so now you can control and dictate your numbers. And so out of those 20 people, the numbers say that you should have a presentation with 12 of those 20. That means that 8 of those people are going to tell you to get lost. 8 of those people are not going to be interested. 8 of those people are maybe not going to, you're not going to be able to reach. But you should be able to get in front of 12 and make 12 presentations. Out of those 12 presentations, you should close at least half of them, at least 50%. The longer you do this and the better you get at it, your closing ratio will increase. Most agents are now between 70 to 80% that have been doing this for a while. So I'm going to ask Richard, what is your personal close rate, Richard?
I'm roughly at around 70-80%, depending on the day and how enthusiastic I am.
There you go. So, Joe, I don't know if you want to elaborate on that before we continue.
No, I would say my closing ratio is probably about I close about 60% of the households, but a lot of them are double. So as far as the app to appointment ratio is probably close to about 80% just because of the doubles.
There you go. I like that. I get a lot of double headers myself. I like to count the apps to the presentations. Maybe that's not the right way to do it, but I can say when I count my apps, I'm usually like 80 to 90%, and some weeks I will average even 100%. Maybe I have 4 sits and I have 4 apps, but those 4 apps might have came out of 2 cells. So yeah, I might be at 50% closing, but with the double headers, your app count is really what you're looking for. So I'm
absolutely.
And we have a great format. I mean, I really don't want this meeting to be about leads, but I mean, we really need to talk about best practices, which is seeing the people. So the number one lead that you can put in your hands is a fresh direct mail lead. The next best thing is going to be a Facebook lead, which we also offer A-Lead Facebook leads. We also have telemarketed leads. And then we have older leads that you can buy at huge discounts. So we have a pretty, huge lead menu to choose from, but you got to plug in. And so the best way to see the people is to make sure you have enough leads in inventory so that you can have plenty of people to talk to. And a good strategy is to supplement your A leads with other leads that are available, whether it be B leads or Facebook leads or telemarketed leads. I always recommend to supplement your direct mail lead with those other leads, and that way you're constantly having people to see and you're always in front of somebody. So let's face it, the more presentations you make, the more sales you're going to make. It doesn't matter how good or bad you are at presentations or selling. The more presentations you do, the more sales you're going to make. That's just, undeniable fact. Joe, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Well, the thing I want to say before we move on, guys, I've been doing this a long time and I've tried everything. Events, cold calling, I mean, just door hangers, everything and anything. And I always go back to direct mail. Now Facebook, because we have Facebook leads. Those weren't around 10 years ago, but tried and true. I mean, you think about it, and Jimmy talking about doing events. Like doing an event, man, what an awesome idea to do an event. Have you ever done one? Do you have any idea how much planning and how much effort it takes just to do one event? You'd be lucky to pull off one a month. Let alone, can you imagine trying to do an event every single week? Forget about it. You'd have to hire a staff of people. It'd probably cost you a couple $1,000s a week just to hold an event. It's so much more efficient, not only with your return on investment, but your time, to simply say, here, let me pay my money to the professionals, let them do all the marketing, and then you get these fresh leads that just show up in your inbox, and then all you got to do is go see them. The one last thing about the leads is I'm just telling you, on the Facebook leads, it's a great source. But again, the hardest part about with any lead, the hardest part of any lead is actually getting in touch with the people. I know a lot of agents that are doing Facebook leads. I know a lot of agents that are trying to email them, trying to call them. I'm telling you, you got to go old school on these leads. The best way to contact any lead whether it's a direct mail lead, Facebook lead, or even a telemarketing lead, is do it in person, face to face. That's the best way to prospect any type of lead. That's it on that.
Amen, brother.
All right, man, you ready to move on?
Let's move on.
Unless Richard has anything else.
Well, I did just want to mention one thing. I think
Okay.
when I first started, I try to figure out a way around the lead system and not have to spend the $30 on an A lead. And I tell you guys, I tried and tried to figure out a different way. And again, like Joe, it always brought me back to the A leads. And there's really no better cost-effective method of acquiring or getting in front of clients other than direct mail A leads, or the Facebook leads and things like that. So I guess to just add to what Joe said is that when I first started, I tried to get around having to spend the money on leads and try to figure out different ways, and I couldn't figure it out. So once I realized that, I just went full throttle with just A leads and never looked back. And all my success has been off of A leads. I've never even touched my warm market at all.
Well, there you go, dude. Now you've been doing it for 3 years. Now you can go to your warm market and pick up those sales. Guys, at the end of the day, nobody wants to spend money on leads. I get it. But what's the alternative? Cold call out of a phone book? Go canvassing neighborhoods? Hey, I mean, we're not saying don't do it, but that's the alternative of doing it. Next is what's your customer's why? We're going to be talking about selling on emotion, not logic, and finding the pain. In other words, finding your client's hotspots. Hotspots. That doesn't sound right.
Yeah,
Jimmy,
they're hot button.
Hot button. There you go. There you go. Thank you.
You know, I learned something when I was very young. At the age of 16, I started selling shoes. And, you know, I did that for 6 years, Joe. And I had some really good, I guess you can say, teachers or mentors at a young age, some old shoe dogs that showed me how to sell. And, you know, they told me the key to unlocking a sell is to find out what your customer really wants and then provide that solution. And I'll just give you a metaphor, like just using the shoes. See, many times people would come in looking for shoes. It's not the shoe that they wanted. It was something else, is what that shoe can do for them. If I had a young business man come in and he wanted some nice dress shoes, he wanted to impress the people at his firm. He wanted people to look at him and to, you know, to think that he was sharp. That's what he was buying, is not a pair of shoes, you see. And when you put that in our customers' minds, you know, when they mail in that card requesting information about life insurance, they don't want to buy life insurance. What they want is to provide a financial solution for their family so that they don't have to sell barbecue plates when they die to pay for their funeral. Or maybe what they want is to leave their kids or maybe their wife, their husband, they want to leave something behind so that they don't have to sell the house or, you know, move out right away because they can't afford to make the house payment. So you have to have the right frame of mind, and you need to find out what's the key to unlocking the sale, is finding out what it is that motivates the customer. So when we put on here, what's your customer's why? One of the very first things I ask every client is, why did they fill out the card and mail it in? And I kind of set that up a little bit, and I say, you know, Mr. Customer, I've been doing this for a while, and a lot of people tell me the reason why they filled out the card and sent it in is just simply put, they don't want their family to have the financial burden of paying for the funeral when they pass away. But I want to know, Mr. Customers, why did you fill out the card and mail it in? And then I just be quiet and I let them tell me. And and find out what their why is, right? And then once they tell you what the why is, then you need to keep asking questions to cultivate that and figure out who it is that they're trying to protect, and cultivate it and water that seed, because you want to build emotion. So what I mean by who it is, so if I ask Joe, why he mailed in the card, he says because I don't want my family to have that exactly that burden, then I'm going to ask him, so Joe, if you were to die unexpectedly here in the near future, who in your family is going to have that financial burden? Who in your family is going to be responsible for making all those arrangements? And I just listen. And Joe might say, oh, it's going to be my daughter. Oh, okay. Well, how old is your daughter, Joe? He might say, oh, she's 35. So then I ask questions about the daughter. Oh, tell me about her. What does she do? Oh, she's a nurse. How many kids does she have? She has 3 kids. Oh, you have grandkids? So you see how I'm taking that conversation, right? Is she married? Oh, no, she's single. She's a single mom. Well, how is she doing right now financially? Oh, she's struggling. See, I let all that information come out. I haven't even started my presentation, but I'm finding out what my customer's why is. And I'm cultivating that, and it's coming out of their own mouth. So you see, when I come back later and I offer them a quote, they know why that they're going to make this purchase. I don't know if that makes sense, but Joe, I'll let you elaborate on that.
Well, here's what I can tell you. If you guys have read the Magic Formula, in the first few pages, I talk about my experience, guys. I almost failed out of the final expense business. And the reason why is because I was trying to sell on logic. I was going in assuming that every client wanted to buy life insurance. Like, hey, this is about life insurance, life insurance, life insurance, life insurance. I get life insurance. I don't want life insurance. What do you mean you don't want life insurance? Why'd you send the card in? Well, I don't know. I just wanted to get some information. I was like, just like beating my head against the wall until I finally figured it out about it's the emotional part. And once that switch flipped in my head and I realized, like what Jimmy said, is that they don't want to buy life. At the end of the day, nobody wants to buy life insurance. I don't want it. Jimmy doesn't want it. Why do we do it? Because we want to protect our families. We don't want life insurance. We want what life insurance does. So when you switch the focus from the product and you flip it to what it does for the consumer and how it solves a problem, it's a whole different sale. So when you go into the house and you become a problem solver and instead of trying to sell them something, we're there to fix their problem. And here's their problem. At the end of the day, all of our clients have one thing in common. That is that they don't want to die and leave their family with a financial burden to cover their final expenses. That's it. At the end of the day, that's what they all have in common. So that's what we need to focus on and to find the solution to that problem. And I'm telling you, it was like I went from making 0 sales to just like crushing it and just like, man, this business is so easy. I love final expense. And I never talked about life insurance. I just talked about the emotional burden. I talked about, I got really good at finding what their, like what Jimmy says, I got really good at finding out what their why was and focused on the emotional part and forgot about the logical part and just find the pain, find out exactly what their pain is and dig deep into it. Don't be afraid to ask questions. The quality of your questions will determine the quality of your life. So be good at it, get better at asking really good questions and don't be afraid to go deep with those questions. So we can move on unless Richard, do you want to add? I don't mean to leave you out there, buddy. I want you to jump in anytime you want.
No, I think you guys covered everything perfectly.
All right, well, good. Well, you're going to be handling the next slide here,
Okay.
and that is we're going to be talking about schedule your week. Can you talk to us about how to schedule your week or what you do to be more organized?
Yeah, of course. So one of the first things I want to talk about is that having a schedule is really important, because I think Jimmy and yourself as well have talked about how it's really easy to stay busy doing things that aren't making you money, and you're not being productive. So I think Jimmy has a really good schedule. If I'm not mistaken, I'd like to share it, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jimmy. But Jimmy Jimmy has a schedule that I've tried to follow, and I follow it as best as I can. And obviously, based on my schedule, I try to change it. But the first thing is to schedule your week. A couple days or the week before, right? And I believe Jimmy, in this case, tends to schedule his week on the weekend before, either Saturday or Sunday, right? And what I mean by scheduling for the week, right? So you have to set some time. Of course, what I usually tell people is set time aside on Fridays mornings for the YG call and the senior solutions call, first of all, right? And then you also want to schedule time for door knocking, prospecting, door knocking, and maybe making calls. And then also have an office day where you're taking care of all those things, those loose ends, following up on pending business and things like that. So first of all, scheduling beginning the week before, scheduling your week is really important. Now, when it comes to scheduling for the week, I tend to do a couple of things. When I schedule my week, I tend to door knock Mondays and Tuesdays, and then on Wednesdays, I try to do calls for Thursdays and Fridays. Okay, and what I mean by that, so I use Google Calendar, and typically the way I do my scheduling, I set the best time that I've seen that I get a hold of people with door knocking is early morning. So I try to be at my first door knock by 8:30, 9 the latest. And then typically there's a window between, I think, 11 and around 3 p.m. where most people are out, running errands, things like that. So I've noticed that door knocking, I don't get a whole lot of people during that time. And then typically in the afternoon after 5 p.m. when people are done with their errands or home from work is typically when I have success with door knocking. So I make sure to schedule my door knocking along those times. Now, also calling, right? For some people that do their own calling and scheduling, it's very important to schedule a day or a time, or allot yourself a couple hours per week to schedule those appointments. Now, I don't particularly make calls myself, and I have an appointment setter. So I can't really speak on actually setting time aside for calling. I don't know if Jimmy, I think you call on Sundays, right, Jimmy?
I do. I think Sunday evening about 5 o'clock is the best time to get a hold of people. They will answer the phone, and you can fill up your day typically within a 2 hour time call. So like between 5 and 7, I'll normally fill up my Monday, but I schedule it for 5 to 8.
Okay.
And I call until my day is full.
Cool. So so going back to just scheduling the week, you have to determine what's based on your schedule, what's best for you, and then make schedule your week accordingly. But it's really important to have that schedule, because if you're just running with like a chicken with your head cut off and just trying to wing it and door knock here or make calls there, you're not going to be very productive. You're going to be going back and forth and doing a lot of busy work, but not actually prospecting and making money.
Yep.
Jimmy, anything to add for the schedule?
Yeah, I want to say this. I like to read books, particularly about business people. And, one of the common things that I see is that a lot of successful businessmen, they don't worry about what day of the week they're working. It doesn't matter if it's a Sunday, if it's a Saturday, it's a Monday. They do what needs to get done whatever day that is, right? And if you have the mindset that you're going to work a 9 to 5 job in this business, you're not going to be successful. You have to have the mindset that you're going to do what it takes to be successful. And if that means that if that means that it's working on a Sunday afternoon or Saturday morning, or working in the evenings, that's what you got to do. I came from the retail background, and I guess maybe it's because I never had weekends off and I worked many nights. And the way I look at it is, you know what? If I could work on Sundays and Saturdays, and I missed countless barbecues, countless family gatherings because I was always working, and I worked for somebody else. I did that to achieve somebody else's goals and dreams. Well, now that I own my own company and own my own business, why wouldn't I do the same for my own business? So just got to have that right mindset. We're in business. You have to be successful, and so you got to do whatever it takes to be successful. And part of whatever it takes means you need to actually have some activity, and that activity might be on the weekend. So you just have to decide, are you really a businessman or businesswoman, or are you just pretending to be?
Wow. Good point. One last thing, and then we'll move on. Um, Guys, if you want to read a really good book about being more organized and being scheduled, it's a sales guy named Brian Tracy. Probably have heard of him. The name of the book is called Eat That Frog. Kind of a funny name. But one of the important things is that Brian talks about in the book is making the main thing the main thing. Okay. And the main thing, and that means that we prioritize and we put our time into income producing activities, which is prospecting and seeing the people, making presentations. That is what makes us money. That should be what your focus should be on, not busy work, not alphabetizing your leads, doing all that crap. You do that, wake up early at 4 o'clock in the morning to do that stuff. During the working day, it's got to be all about income producing activities and prioritizing what's important. So let's go ahead and move on. Our next slide is going to be kind of a segue into, the scheduling your week is tracking your activity. Guys, as a business owner, I'm just saying it kind of goes along with scheduling. In what Jimmy just said, are you a professional, or is this just a hobby for you? Because if you're a professional, man, you got to track your numbers, because this is a business. You think about in life, in especially in sports, they track every stat you could possibly imagine. Baseball is probably the worst at it. I mean, they track everything. Can you imagine going to any pitcher in the major leagues and asking them what his ERA is, and their answer is like, I don't know, like pretty good, or asking anybody what their batting average is. I don't know. I don't keep track of it. Baloney. They got stats for everything. Football, everything. Basketball, everything. They track their numbers. Why? Because it's important. Restaurants track their numbers. They track how many people are coming in through the door. They track what's selling, what's not selling, what type of advertising is working. And as a business owner, it's important to track your numbers, and we make it simple for you. We got an awesome activity tracker where you can track all of your activity. So this way, at the end of the week, man, you got a simple snapshot. You can go back and look, and you can look at how many leads that you took, how many door knocks did you do, how many scripts at the door, how many presentations, how many appointments off of those, phone calls. How many dials did you make? What was your connect ratio? What was your appointment to sit ratio? Because what I learned very, very early in this business is that it's very easy to fool yourself. It's very easy at the end of the week to think, oh man, I was so busy, but man, I only made one sale. Maybe you weren't as busy as you thought you were. Maybe you were busy, but you weren't productive. And that's what the activity tracker is your what's the word I'm looking? It's your accountability to yourself is what the activity tracker does. Can you imagine? Let's say you wanted to buy a business. Think of any business in the world. Doesn't matter what it is. Insurance business, car business, restaurant. It's an existing business, and you went into the owner and you're going to make an offer. Say, man, this looks like a great business. Can I see your books? Can I see your numbers? And the guy looks at you and says, well, I really don't track any numbers. What would you do? Would you invest in that business? Hell no. The same thing here. This is your business, man. You gotta track those numbers. It's so important. And we've got a great video on activity. If you need help with how to do the activity tracker, we can certainly give you some advice on that. Jimmy, anything else that you want to bring up as far as tracking your numbers or your activity?
Well, here's what I can tell you about our activity tracker sheet.
Yeah.
Joe said it that it'll hold yourself accountable, but you know what? Sometimes we have a hard time doing that, right? So if you need to, talk to your upline and let them know that you want them to hold you accountable and you be the person to initiate the activity tracker and send it into them every night. Joe knows I've done this with him on several occasions. And even like after being a seasoned veteran, sometimes I'll get in a slump and I'll start sending my activity tracker to Joe, and then he'll comment and he'll help me get back on course. But really what I'm doing is this, I needed to be accountable and I wasn't doing it for myself, so I needed to get somebody else to hold me accountable. So, we don't have a requirement for you to send that in to anybody, but we are here for you. If you do want us to hold you accountable, we'll be glad to help you with that.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Let's go ahead and move into field underwriting and knowing your carriers. I'll throw it back over to you and Richard on this topic.
Well, Richard, you know what? I'll let you start off with this topic.
Great. So with field underwriting and knowing your carriers, I know when I first started, and I'm pretty sure I could speak for most of you that are on here that are new, is that it's very intimidating having all these carriers, but not knowing every single bit of information that you need to know to make the best decision for your client. And the thing that I could say is that when you're on the field and you're conducting business and you're helping clients, the first way to start if you're new is to start off by getting to know one or two carriers, maybe Mutual of Omaha, which is one of the more popular ones for most people, Transamerica, and then maybe like Gerber Life to do a guaranteed a product, right? So don't worry, in my opinion, don't worry about having and knowing all of the carriers all at once. Get yourself familiarized with one or two carriers and get familiarized with the questions that are in the application, because that's what's important. The questions, the knockout questions are there and put in place to make it be known that whether they are going to be qualified or they're not going to be qualified. And I can tell you that when I first started, I simply didn't know enough information about the carrier. So I just asked the client every single question that was on the application. For instance, let's say a Mutual of Omaha, if they answered yes to one of the knockout questions, then I would pull out the Transamerica and do the same exact thing. If they said no to every single question, then I would go with Transamerica. And over time, I got familiarized and knowing what each carrier is wanting and whether they're asking and what they will and will not approve. So the thing that I can say is don't get hung up on not knowing all the information. It's impossible to know it when you first are starting off, but just get familiarized with one or two carriers and then grow your knowledge from that point forward.
Excellent point. Then the other tip I have for you for best practices is you want to ask your clients two major questions. One is, what prescription medications are you currently taking? And probably most importantly is, what are you taking them for? So sometimes they don't know the name of the prescription or they can't pronounce the name, but ask them, what are you taking this for? And make your notes. I ask them to go get their medications and I'll make a list. And there's two things that I recommend you to do is, one, download Transamerica's RX mobile lookup to your phone, right? And actually, it's not an app. It's a link that you can save to your home screen, and then so like you just look it up, type in the prescription's name, and then it'll come back and it'll tell you, you know, what their level of coverage would be for that prescription. So it might say this is preferred, this is standard, this is graded, or this is a decline, right? And if it's a multiple purpose, it'll tell you if this is used for this, this is preferred. If it's used for this, this is standard. If it's used for this, it's great. It'll tell you, right? So that's why it's important to ask your clients what it's used for. The other source that you can use is Google. Just Google the prescription drug, and it'll come back and it'll tell you, you know, what that drug is commonly used for and any multiple purposes it has. Just FYI, on the RX mobile lookup, if you type in a drug on there and it doesn't pull anything up, it's a non-issue. Just assume that that drug is going to be a non-issue and you can continue on as preferred. But you know, that's the number one thing you can do. The other thing that I highly recommend is using the build chart. And if you don't know what a build chart is, that's a height and weight chart. So that'll say, you know, if this person is 5'6" tall and they could weigh up to X amount of weight, and they would either be preferred, or if they weigh to this amount, it'd be graded, or they're not eligible. Thank you, Joe, for putting it up there. So make sure that you use your build chart. It's embarrassing, I think, when somebody submits an application and the reason why it was declined was for height and weight. You didn't even do your job. You didn't look at the build chart. The number one carrier that we have for overweight issues is Transamerica, because they don't even ask for height and weight. So if you have somebody that's overweight or maybe way underweight, as long as they're in general good health, you're good to go with Transamerica. But Joe, I'll let you elaborate on that.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, you're right. I get so frustrated when I see an application get turned down for height and weight. Just like, oh, dude. Here's the tip for you guys. If you're writing an application and it's asking for height and weight, that means it's important. So you can kind of use common sense. I mean, if you're writing up a female and you know they're 5'5" and their average weight, let's say 150, 160 pounds, don't even worry about it. It's not an issue. But if you got somebody who's 5'5" and they're pushing 250, you might be thinking to yourself, then I might need to look that up, you know, and then just have this little. You can have this, you know, either carry the card with you or just have it saved on your phone as a screenshot to look at that. As far as field underwriting, Jimmy Richard did a great job. The only thing I will say is, and it's a little bit of trial and errors, finding out what carriers are best for what. There are some gray areas. Now, for the most part, when it comes to field underwriting, the application itself is the field underwriting guide, because they are yes and no questions. But what can be tricky is when you're having clients that are taking maintenance medications that some carriers may consider to be treatment. As an example, let's say you're writing up take Mutual of Omaha as an example. Clients in really good health, but let's say they had a a bypass surgery, and you look it up, and it was 4 years ago, and you think to yourself, 4 years ago, I'm good to go. But then you find out that they're taking some type of medication, maybe like a blood thinner, like Plavix or Warfarin or something like that. There's a good chance that Mutual of Omaha may come back and say, "Oh, blood thinner. Well, that's considered treatment, not just maintenance." So you do have to be careful on some of those. Whereas what I have noticed, Transamerica seems to be very liberal when it comes to blood thinners. They may ask you why they're taking the blood thinner, what was the event that caused the client to be on blood thinners, but more than likely it's going to go in, and it will go in as a preferred rate. So sometimes there's so a little bit of gray area, and a lot of times it's just trial and error, guys. You're going to make mistakes. You're probably going to have some apps that are declined for silly reasons, and you know what? You learn from it. Then you know what? I got a client on blood thinners. Not going to send that to Mutual of Omaha. Going to send my blood thinner people to Transamerica. You're going to learn that, I got a client who is in pretty good health, but they're on insulin. Oh, okay. Well, on the Transamerica app, I see so many agents miss this because it's like taking insulin is like hidden way down at the bottom of the application, and it's like in there with other things like with heart attack, and then it says insulin use. A lot of agents will miss that. You only have to miss it once or twice before you realize. With Mutual of Omaha, they could have insulin use, but as long as it was after the age of 50 and no other complications, they're going to get a level benefit. They're going to get the preferred rate. So you just got to be, you just got to do your due diligence and really be careful with that. With that, I think this is I'm going to change the slide up, and I think this is going to be a really good segue to go into, since we're talking about field underwriting, who are your top 3 carriers and why? And Jimmy and Richard, I'll let you guys answer those, since you guys write a lot more business than I do.
Go ahead, Richard.
Okay. So my 3 top carriers, I would have to say, when I first started, was Mutual of Omaha was my number 1 carrier. And the reason being is that they're relatively easy to work with. They obviously pay the quickest, and they tend to be one of the cheapest, if not the cheapest in most cases. Now, in recent times, I've been writing the majority of my business with Transamerica. And the reason being is that, like Joe said, they tend to be a little bit more liberal with prescriptions. And not just because they're on a prescription do they decline it, but they want to know why they're on the prescription. And my experience recently has been that, the majority of the people that I've been working with are on prescription medications that maybe Mutual of Omaha doesn't approve. So I've been writing a lot of business with Transamerica, and quite frankly, Transamerica and Mutual of Omaha tend to be right hand in hand as far as pricing. They vary, from a few cents to a few dollars, so it's not a significant difference. Now, and then the third carrier, third carrier would be maybe like a Liberty, and simply because things like, say, hepatitis C and things like that, they don't tend to. Liberty's a little bit more. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jim. Is it Liberty that approves Hep C?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to make sure I was saying the correct information. And I've had clients with Hep C that Mutual of Omaha and both Transamerica did not approve, but Liberty did. Okay. So those are my top 3 carriers. Obviously, the gray areas where Mutual of Omaha and Transamerica don't cover, then typically somebody like Liberty would cover like a Hep C or something a little bit along that line.
Very, very good. What about guaranteed issue? Who do you go with?
Guaranteed
Who's your go-to?
guaranteed issue, I've always, even though we have other options, I've always just gone, my go-to has always been Gerber,
Mhm.
simply because I know the product, I'm comfortable with it, and yeah, so Gerber has always been my guaranteed issue product.
Yeah, I think Gerber's a great way to go with guaranteed issue. It's a good name recognition. They're easy to do business with, um, and they're pretty agent friendly as well. So good deal, Jimmy. How about you? Who are your top three?
My number one carrier is Transamerica. Like Richard is like an echo. I used to do mutual most of the time, but for many reasons, Transamerica has more liberal underwriting. They're more diabetic friendly. They actually, to me, the number one reason why I go with Transamerica is they do a better job at collecting the premium. And so I find that I have a higher fallout rate on Mutual of Omaha. More of my clients stick and stay on the books with Transamerica. They send out notices every month to their clients reminding them of the payment. They also have the Direct Express, and if they have Social Security, which almost most of our clients do, instead of filling out the page 2 for the bank draft information, I fill out the last page on the bank draft information of the app, which is the Social Security billing. And then that way it coordinates. Even I'm talking about doing for a bank draft. It coordinates whenever they get paid on Social Security is the day that they draft. What's unique about Transamerica, they have something set up really cool, with Social Security. If, let's say, for example, your client receives their benefits on the 3rd, but the 3rd falls on a holiday or on a weekend, and they're going to pay them the business day before that, maybe on the 30th of the month before, Transamerica will adjust to take out that premium on the 30th so that they collect the premium before they spend the money. And so, like I said, that a lot of my customers stay on the books, a higher percentage of them with Transamerica. The other thing too is that they have like the secondary addressee on the application. So whoever their beneficiary is, I always fill that in so that if they do miss a payment or something like that, they're going to send a notice to that secondary addressee. So if mom and dad miss that payment and their son or daughter gets that notification, they're going to follow up with mom and dad and make sure that they get that paid. So, that really helps out later when those folks get older, when maybe they get more forgetful or they start developing Alzheimer's or dementia or something like that. So it's really key there. Let me see here. What else can I tell you about them? I love their NB Jet. Now, here's the biggest thing, and I know I'm talking a lot about this, but most people tell me, I don't like their application, and I hear people whining and complaining about it all the time. Well, guess what? You do it a couple of times, it's really not that hard. And once you get really good at it and you know exactly what they're looking for, their their apps process faster than Mutual of Omaha. I get apps processed within 24 to 48 hours, like probably 80% of them. They're just really, really fast. Now, the ones that didn't get processed because we made some sort of error, and sometimes I still do, yeah, well then it's going to get held up. I totally get the frustration on that. But those are Transamerica first, then Mutual of Omaha. I love not so much the living promise of Mutual of Omaha, but the other products that Mutual of Omaha offers, like the simplified issue for uh, 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 what is it? Guaranteed Universal Life Express. I like
Yep.
their Term Life Express products. I like their accidental death products. So I really like Mutual of Omaha for those other type of products. And then thirdly, I'll just be different. I like AIG for guaranteed issue.
Awesome, awesome. Guys, I tell you what, time flies when you're having fun. Um, we are out of time. and I just realized it. We were gonna, if you're liking this series, we're gonna continue it next week. We're gonna have best practices, part number 3 next week. So make sure you tune in for the show, and we will continue with our momentum. Jimmy, any last words? Do you want to sign us off? You and Richard?
I'm good. Y'all have a great weekend. Good selling.
Thank you. Richard, thanks for joining us, sir. Great information.
Of course, y'all have a good one. Happy
Hopefully
selling.
you can plug in next week as well.
Sounds great.
All right, everybody. Thanks for plugging in, and we'll get this information on YouTube and posted, get it on the channel and get it on the website as soon as possible. Have a great weekend. Take care. Bye-bye.